Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zempilas.
It's a very awkward and undignified entry. My apologies. There's a reason for that, because I don't put the chain pins in my lapels anymore because I've got new suits and it's been ruining the suits. Just thought I'd mention that. And that's why I've walked in a little clumsily. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City of Perth March 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. I'm going to declare the meeting open. It's still 5 p.m. exactly, so despite that sort of unnecessary patter from me, we still managed to start at 5 o'clock. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia, and pay my respects to elders past and present. As always, it is a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar land. And CEO, while everybody is up, I'm going to ask you, please, if you would recite the prayer.
Almighty God, under whose providence we hold responsibility for this city, grant us wisdom to understand its present needs, foresight to anticipate its future growth, and grace to serve our fellow citizens with integrity and selfless devotion. And to thee be all blessing and glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, everybody. Please be seated. Make yourselves comfortable. Okay, sorry about that. That's very awkward. I'm going to take my chains off, if that's all right. Any ratepayers object to me not wearing the chains? Will you feel any less serviced by the Lord Mayor? Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. My meeting, as you correctly pointed out, early's doors, and it's been one of the smartest things you've ever said. Right, everybody, it is my duty, as per usual, to tell you that Council Policy 1.4, because of that one, in accordance with, this meeting's being live streamed. It's available, the recording will be made available on the City's website following the meeting, but hello to everybody who might be watching online anywhere around the world. Let's go through the attendance. In attendance today, Deputy Lord Mayor Clyde Bevan. Deputy Lord Mayor, thank you for acting as the presiding officer last week during my absence. Thank you very much. Councillor Raj Doshi is with us. Councillor Brent Fleeton is here tonight. Councillor Liam Gobbett is also with us. Councillor David Gonsalves, good afternoon to you. Councillor Victor Coe, hello. And Councillor Catherine Leeser. In addition, I welcome officers, members of the public, and as I mentioned, any media is either in attendance or watching online. 3.1 and 3.2, that's apologies and leave of absence. Now, Councillor Bruce Reynolds is an apology this evening. No elected members are currently on an approved leave of absence. And item 3.3 is applications for leave of absence. A leave of absence application has been received from Councillor David Gonsalves for the period 23 April 2024 to 30 April 2024 inclusive. Do any other elected members have an application for a leave of absence? Councillor Fleeton with his hand up.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. 1 April to 21 April inclusive, please.
Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. Just making sure that we've got a note of that. We do. Thank you. Any others, elected members? Do we have any others? Right. So we're moving a motion. Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. We need a seconder. Thank you. Does anybody oppose? Unopposed, and so all good to go. Item 4 is announcements by the Lord Mayor. As I alluded to just a short time ago, I was away last week as part of a delegation to CERAWeek. CERAWeek is the S&P Executive Conference, Standard & Poor's as they were once known, now S&P. And thanks to a resolution of Council, the Lord Mayor, the CEO, Councillor Bruce Reynolds, and 7 members of the Perth business community travelled to Houston on a delegation to CERAWeek, to the World Energy Cities Partnership gathering, and to a number of events that were organised while we were there. And I'm just getting my notes because there's a couple of things that I wanted to refer to specifically, and I have found them, and we'll do this now. So it was tremendous to be able to take that delegation away. S&P CERAWeek is the Executive Energy Transition Conference in Houston. It is considered the world-leading conference of its kind. And certainly our guests attested to that. When I say guests, they paid their own way and their own accommodation. But what we were able to provide through our membership of the World Energy Cities Partnership and our relationship specifically with the City of Houston was access to the CERAWeek registration and the word I'm looking for is when they put that thing around your neck, accreditation. There we go. Invaluable, and it was much appreciated. I mentioned who was there from us, with us from the city of Perth in the city of Houston. Stephen Gould from Infinite Green Energy, Max Van Summerson from NZN, Owen Locke from Pacific Energy, Peter Ashworth from Curtin University, Adrienne Lebombard from the Chamber of Minerals and Energy of Western Australia, Glenn Corrie from Hazer Group, and Brodie McCulloch from Core Innovation. I note a couple of those on our delegation involved in the hydrogen space, one in the battery space, one providing landing pad and opportunities for investment in startups in mining and energy services, as well as the industry groups represented through the Chamber of Minerals and Energy and Curtin University. Along the way, and amongst the very busy program that we were able to take in, we saw some of the leading CEOs from around the world, including the chair and CEO of ExxonMobil, the CEO of Shell, the US Secretary of Energy, US with the Department of Energy, obviously. We were able to join the Woodside Energy delegation to hear their CEO, Meg O'Neill, speak. We were invited and went with our delegation and were able to connect them with the Greater Houston Partnership, the Australian American Chamber of Commerce, and we're able to meet with the City of Houston Mayor's Office, their representatives and the Deputy Mayor. We're also able to include our group in the World Energy Cities Partnership gathering. Perth is a member city and a foundation member city of the World Energy Cities Partnership, and it's through our membership of this hugely influential group we're able to further conversations, opportunities, leadership for Perth in the world's transition to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future, along with our delegates. All in all, a very successful delegation we were able to lead. And I'll just take this opportunity actually to give you a comment from one of our delegation who, as they arrived back, have been providing us with some of their feedback and what they were able to enjoy and their thoughts on the trip. And I'll just get that out for you here. One moment. And for whatever reason, that's disappeared. But needless to say, if you've got it there, thank you. Cheers, CEO. So, for example, some of the commentary that was associated with the delegation. As an international conference with a large attendance from across the energy sector, there's nowhere better than CERAWeek to get an understanding of the latest trends in energy transition. A highlight for me, this is from one of the delegates, was hearing directly from Bill Gates on the process of his investment company, Breakthrough Energy, and supporting the development of promising technologies to reduce emissions from steel, cement and other hard-to-abate industries. CERAWeek was also an amazing opportunity to meet new potential clients and explore opportunities to expand to international markets, as well as build relationships with others in the delegation who also work in Perth's energy sector. As a startup, we would not have had the resources to attend this event without the support from the City of Perth. And I think that's an excellent summation from one of those who was on the delegation of the opportunities we were able to provide. I think my final comment, and I've said this a few times since we've been away, sister city relationships done right can be very effective. And I'm very mindful of the community conversations that have been around sister city relationships. And I absolutely, like I'm sure everyone in this chamber, accepts why some of those conversations have taken place. But this is how you do them. It's a 40-year association that we have with the City of Houston. Because of that, our membership as a foundation member to the World Energy Cities Partnership, we were able to bring that group to Perth in October of last year, a hugely successful event, and with that, leverage those associations to then take a group of our businesses and organisations to further their knowledge and opportunities and learnings in this space. That's how you do sister city relationships. That's what they're about. When they're done properly, they work and give full value for money. Just briefly, I wanted to mention the Lottery West Boorloo Heritage Festival presented by the City of Perth. It gets underway on Monday, April 1. That's April Fool's Day, but that is for real. It really gets underway. 100 events across the entire month. I want to compliment our team. They've taken this event from a one-weekend event into a month-long festival. I want to acknowledge Lottery West and their significant funding support and their significant support to publicise it. And I also want to acknowledge my very good friends at the ABC who have joined us as the media partner for this year's event. And kudos from me for the extensive coverage and promotion of the event that they have given us already, given the event, us as the City of Perth. One of the highlights this year is His Madge in the Limelight. It's a free light and sound show. It's been especially produced to celebrate His Majesty's Theatre's 120th birthday. And we're inviting people after they've seen the show to wander down King Street and enjoy the historic displays and musical performances and roving artists. Again, thanks to Lottery West. Their sponsorship has really helped make this the biggest and best Boorloo Heritage Festival, and we know that people really enjoy it. We're looking forward to hosting them over the month of April. Item 5 is disclosures of interest, and CEO, I'm going to ask you to give me a rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The following interests have been disclosed. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.2 as she is a councillor on the Heritage Council of WA. The Deputy Lord Mayor has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 16.2 as the church group were his landlords. Councillor Liam Gobbett has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.2 as 6975, 7785, 8793, 9599 Barrack Street with the subject of a development application he determined. He briefly discussed the Liberty Theatre proposal with Mr Humich prior to DA submission. Councillor Brent Fleeton has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 11.2 as he lives on Malcolm Street, which is close but not adjacent. He has worked in this industry in the past. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 20.1 as until the 2023 local government elections, she represented the City of Perth on the Development WA Perth Local Redevelopment Committee. And finally, in relation to item 12.2, Councillor Coe.
Sorry, I apologise. My handwriting's a bit crap.
No.
It's 12.
So we would have
12.1.
expected nothing less.
12.1, the events plan.
Councillor,
And I've met the organisers of the Lunar New Year.
thank you. And Councillor Coe has declared an impartiality interest as he says he has meant with the event organisers in the past. Thank you very much.
Out of interest, you could read that, could you, CEO?
Yes, quite legible. Thank you.
So you're hard on yourself, Dr. Coe. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for their declarations. As we know, our disclosures of interest are always keenly observed. And I thank all of my fellow elected members for being so thorough, as always. Item 6. Councillor Fleeton, is public participation. 6.1 is responses to public questions previously taken on notice. Questions from Scott O'Keefe were taken on notice at the ordinary council meeting of the 27th of February 2024 and have been responded to in the agenda for this meeting. 6.2 is public question time. So before we commence public question time, I'm going to remind everybody that we have a 15-minute allocation for public question time, and this is available for asking questions only and not for making statements or expressing personal opinions. In addition, no discussion of the questions or answers is to take place. Questions received with more than 24 hours notice will be responded to first. And for those of you who have submitted your question in the last 24 hours, your question will be included in the minutes of this meeting, and a response will be provided in the agenda to the April 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. So, CEO, do we have any public questions which have been received, and this is the important distinction here, prior to or with more than 24 hours notice?
Yes, Lord Mayor, 2 members of the public have submitted public questions.
Okay, so they are, I believe, John Gugulis, who has advised he's unable to attend tonight's meeting to ask their question, but John's question and responses will be provided in the minutes to this meeting. And I believe the second of those was from David Lim. Is David with us tonight? David, hello. Good to see you. Please come on forward. If you could give us your name and your address, and you can ask your question. You can just, there's a button there. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Okay. So David Lim, Unit 214 Park Road, Crawley. So I've got some questions for you tonight. I'd just like to quickly acknowledge the extraordinary work that the council and the administration do. Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions, and I recognise that preparing for and making council decisions is not an easy task. It involves a considerable amount of time to digest and process information in order to get a good understanding of the issues to make fair judgment calls. Thank you all for your time and dedication. Okay, so which question are we doing first? Okay, so I've got 3 questions and they're multi-part questions, so please bear with me with patience. So I'm doing item 14.1, parking fee increase. What active measures has the city undertaken to encourage adoption of the parking app? Has the city considered a regular education campaign to highlight its benefits, such as users receiving an upfront fee calculation with automatic application of an area's parking conditions, and the user can control the time of their departure? What financial...
David, what we might do, if it's okay, we might go question and answer. I think it'll be easier for everyone then. So we've heard the question, then let's get the answer, and then we'll return for the next question, and so on. So, CEO, the answer to this question is coming from?
The General Manager, Commercial Services, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, the City has actively supported the app implementation since June 2023, with social media advertising updates provided via the City of Perth parking app, website and Visit Perth platforms, noting that the most effective campaign is one targeted at the point of sale, messaging and advertising placed around parking signs and meters across the city, with further digital awareness campaigns.
Thank you. David, next question.
What financial modelling has the city conducted to analyse the impact of price increase on day rates for weekly budgeting? For example, a university student medical officer in the Crawley Nedlands neighbourhood will have to pay an extra $1.60 a day to cover the app adoption recovery charge.
CEO, back through to the General Manager of Commercial Services again. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, the City conducted analysis which included pricing to assist supply and demand dynamics and increase bay turnover, thereby increasing visitation and access to bays, and to reduce cruising and congestion. Management of this is key in supporting residents and businesses across the City of Perth, ensuring a reasonable level of bay availability. Aligning the total cost of parking across the payment methods is intentional, noting that there are no increases to the cost of parking if you currently pay using the app, and this will encourage further take-up of the app, which is a more flexible and convenient method for the customer.
Yep, thank you.
David, I know you've got a third question, which I think will be answered by a different officer, but I'll let you answer the question. Ask the question first.
Okay, so...
This is question 2, I think the one about the UWA QE2 precinct plan. Yep.
Okay. The city planning item UWA QE2 precinct plan shows a total of $27,281 spent of a $350,000 budget. Comments note that the consultant continued to work on background report and engagement plan, transport impact assessment and parking management plan being finalised with expenditure to follow. What spending is forecast for the UWA QE2 precinct plan for the remainder of the financial year?
Thank you. CEO.
If we could ask Michael Kent, the Chief Financial Officer, to respond, please.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, the answer to part A of this question I am able to give. The remaining answers I'll just flag would probably need to be redirected to the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development. But for the part A, the question on the spending forecast, the response is that the forecast for the remainder of the financial year is $193,264. Payments are specifically linked to deliverables, in this instance, a state and local planning framework review, the submission of a background site and context analysis report to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, and 90% completion benchmark on technical reports.
Okay, so did you want to redirect that for the subsequent parts?
Yes, please, to the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development.
No, so was there more of the answer?
Question or?
Hasn't asked the question.
Okay, yeah, you've done it in parts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What timetable has been planned for the delivery of the background report and engagement plan? At last month's ordinary council meeting, the city stated they had planned to commence community engagement in May, but this was delayed pending the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage finalising its economic development strategy.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. So the background report, we've got two deliverables. Key deliverables this year is submission of that background report and commencement of community engagement. We are almost done with that background report. We will be sending that through to the department very soon and most certainly within this financial year. We're also working on an engagement plan that we hope to finish soon, but the actual commencement or start of community engagement will only occur once we've had input from the state government on the future economic growth of the precinct, once they've decided what that's going to look like.
Okay, sure. Okay, when will the transport impact assessment and parking management plan be finalised and shared with stakeholders? Does the city have interim plans to alleviate the traffic and parking problems currently occurring in the precinct?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the traffic impact assessment and the parking management plan will form part of that background report. So that will then be shared with stakeholders when the consultation starts. All that information will be put into the public realm and everybody will be able to have access to it. In terms of transport initiatives, we recently completed a new shared path along Winthrop Avenue to encourage or improve active transport movement, and we're constantly and currently working with state government agencies like Main Roads, the Public Transport Authority and the Department of Transport on other ways to improve access and movement into and through the precinct.
Okay, thank you. And finally, will the city be updating the UWA QE2 precinct plan webpage to reflect the current phase of the project?
Through you, Lord Mayor, absolutely. We're currently working with staff from the City of Nedlands and the Department of Planning on finalising wording for updates to the Engage Perth page. These updates will include an update to the project status, the current and next steps, and some frequently asked questions.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Mr. Lim, we're on to question 3, I think, if I've got this right. And I might, in this instance, I might get you to answer, to ask, I think you've got part A, B and C. Might get you to roll through all 3. And I believe it's to the General Manager to our right. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you. The Parks and Environment Operations item, Pest Control, PSHB, shows an unbudgeted amount of $220,425 spent this year. January's accounts paid itemises a total of $75,028.85 paid to the contractor for Polyphagus shot hole borer management. What is the anticipated budget being set at the mid-year budget review for the program, and is this in line with current spending? What range of measures is the city undertaking to address the issue? Does this include tree preservation and investment in research-based solutions? Is the city recording the historical significance and age of trees by photographing and documenting their location before their removal?
Mr Lim, thank you. CEO.
Could I please invite the General Manager Infrastructure to answer those questions?
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. In answer to the first part of the question, the mid-year budget review set a total budget of $750,000 for the financial year 23-24. Year-to-date expenditure is $261,488 of $550,000 relating to the proactive management of shot hole borer. It is anticipated to expend that full available budget. Expenditure to initiate a research trial of $200,000 is subject to satisfying procurement and contractual outcomes. In regard to the second part of the question, tree preservation and proactive management are at the core of the city's response to managing shot hole borer. City staff have been working across the local government, arboriculture and science sectors to identify improved strategies and tactics to complement the work being undertaken by the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. Works include the mapping of host trees to inform a schedule of visual inspections, including aerial inspections of high-value trees, leading to the early identification of infestations resulting in minor pruning of trees compared to the complete tree removal. The application of soil amendments and biostimulants to boost tree health and vigour, and supporting advocacy for a stronger response to eradicating shot hole borer, including the development of a research trial. The delivery of these works is being led by a recently recruited technical arboriculture officer. And then finally, in relation to the third part of the question, yes, the city is and will continue to capture images pre and post works. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Alan, I noticed you were, David, I noticed you were scribbling down those answers, and for your benefit and for everybody else's benefit, the answers will appear in the minutes to this meeting. So if you missed any of that or are keen to sort of go back and have a look over it, that opportunity exists. Can I thank you for your interest, a great range of questions. We're hugely energised by engaged community members, and we really thank you for being here tonight and for taking such an interest in the city of Perth and our affairs as they relate to you. Do you enjoy, as you go, are you enjoying living in the city of Perth?
Well done.
Thank you, David. Let the record show what Mr. Lim said. Thank you, David. Thank you very much for being here tonight, mate. We appreciate it very much. CEO, have any other public questions been received prior to the meeting?
No, Lord Mayor.
All righty, so we'll skedoodle on to item 7, confirmation of minutes, and I'm going to ask for somebody to move the following motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 27 Feb 2024 as a true and accurate record. Who'd like to move that? Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. A seconder, Councillor Leeser. Any members oppose this motion? No. This motion being unopposed, I'm going to declare it carried unanimously. Item 8, questions by members which due notice has been given. We don't have any of those tonight. Item 9, correspondence. No correspondence has been received. And 10 is petitions. No petitions have been received. So we move on to reports. And before we move on to the reports, the following items have been identified to be moved on block. They are 15.1, monthly financial statements, January 2024. 15.2, schedule of accounts paid, January 2024. 16.2, Cathedral Square placemaking proposals. 16.3, City of Perth Parking Amendment, Local Law 2023, adoption of the undertakings from the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation. And 19.1, the CEO Key Performance Indicators Update Report. That's Q2 2023-2024, which takes in the period 1 October 2023 to 31 December 2023. Do any elected members wish to extract any of the items I've just listed from on block? No? Okay. So the recommendations of those items, oh no, we need to do this. I will now move a motion.
Sorry, I'll remove Cathedral Square placemaking.
Okay, so 16.2 is removed. Thank you. Maybe the microphone wasn't on, councillor, but we've got it now. So the remaining items, 15.1, 15.2, 16.3 and 19.1, I'll move a motion that those items be dealt with en bloc. Could I get a seconder for this motion? Thank you, councillor Fleeton. Any members oppose this motion? Motion being unopposed, I will declare it carried unanimously. And so the recommendations of those items have now been passed en bloc in accordance with clause 9.2 of the City of Perth Standing Orders Local Law 2009. And the officer and/or committee recommendations have been adopted by council. So we're now going to move on to the reports which have been extracted for debate. 11. Planning and Economic Development Alliance reports. First of those, 11.1, corporate carbon accounting. Would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation here? Thank you, councillor Leeser. A seconder. Thank you, councillor Gobbett. Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, it's really good to have a baseline. Thank you to the administration for that. We must, as they often say, you can't influence what you can't count or can't measure. So it's really important that this piece of work has been done. We must proceed cautiously, however, and we must implement prudent actions in this regard that positively affect not just the carbon counting, but also the city's financials. However, I'm very pleased to see this and I commend it to my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Leeser. Councillor Gobbett.
I reserve my right, thanks.
Thank you, councillor Gobbett. Is there any, councillor Fleet?
Just a question. First, please. So on page 9, scope 3, non-quantified, has 1186 tonnes of CO2. And in one of the discussion points in next steps, it talks about the city's going to undertake a project to identify all electrical and water meters to establish the baseline here. Are we estimating it's going to come out of this non-quantified amount and that's what we think it is? I just don't understand how we can get an emissions total if it's not quantified at the moment.
CEO.
Could I invite the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development to respond?
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. No, those non-quantified items relate, if you look at the attached report, to some other elements of the carbon accounting or the emissions inventory where we don't have specific data, so we've got to make some assumptions about them. Overall, we know what electricity we are using. What we need the metering for is to be able to figure out where it's going to and exactly who's using it. So at the moment, some of our meters have multiple sources. We're not able to break that apart and figure out exactly where it's coming from, so we can't yet put in place initiatives that are targeted enough to make a difference.
Just a follow-up question, Lord Mayor. Is it not prudent to do that work first and then set what this total inventory is? Because we're asking here to use this 7670 total and to work off this as our future baseline. Wouldn't we want to work out what it is first before we agree to this?
CEO, through you to the GM. Thank you.
Through you, Lord Mayor, we could do that, but I guess I don't think that's going to change the fact that our Scope 2 emissions are 3816 in terms of electricity. It's just going to give us a more granular feel for where that electricity is coming from. So at the moment, one of our assets is actually registering electrical use from a building and a car park. So we want to change the metering so we can figure out which is which. But those Scope 3s, I guess, are quite separate, and it's the Scope 1s and 2s that we're going to take responsibility for in the short term and try and tackle.
Thanks, General Manager. Thanks, Councillor Fleeton, for the questions. So we'll return to invite councillors if anyone wishes to speak for or against. Councillor
I'm happy
Fleeton.
to speak for it because it is setting the baseline and we're going to fund some projects which need to be done. What I don't want to see happen in future is the city spending ratepayer money on grants or educating the public on emissions reduction when we don't even know what our assets are using in terms of this. So I think we should get our own house in order first and spend money doing that rather than lecturing everyone else on it.
Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. Roundabout way of speaking for it. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Gonsalves.
Thanks. I commend the work that's been undertaken because I think it provides a real foundation for us to look at future projects. I note that the City of Bayswater has created the first climate reserve for any local government in Australia, and I hope that that's something that we could also look at.
Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Anyone else for or against? Councillor Gobbett, you have reserved your right. Want to use it?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, no, I don't wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leeser.
We seem to be all in agreement, Lord Mayor. Nothing
Thank
else
you.
to say. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? And that has been, thank you, Councillor Clark, that has been carried unanimously. We move then to item 11.2. This is 39, I've got to read all of this. 39 and 39A, lots 52 and 53 Mount Street, West Perth, proposed change of use from 2 single houses, residential, to short-term accommodation, special residential, including associated works, DA-203/5162. Would anybody, just before I do that, I was absent, as was the CEO. I note a number of people in the gallery tonight. I think there's Alan Stewart, Brodie Edmonston, Louise Thompson and Lee Chong, who gave deputations last week at our agenda briefing session. Thanks for being back here and thanks for being part of the process. Nice to have you with us. So, would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Fleeton, thank you. And I'm looking for a seconder. And I see Councillor Leeser's hand up. Councillor Fleeton.
Thank you, and thanks to the applicants for their deputation last week where I asked a few questions. So I live very close to this property, walk past it all the time, walked past it this afternoon actually, and was viewing it from a guest's eyes in how they would move around, how rubbish would be managed, how noise would be managed. Do appreciate the issues that were raised in consultation, but like the GM said last week, it's better for us to manage these short-term properties through management plans and work with the applicant rather than have it off the books and have an issue for us. But as the GM said, it's an allowed land use here. So while we're not seeing anyone lose their apartment and it being transferred from a rental to a short stay, that's what this property was built for. So happy to move it.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to say that in my experience in the strata world, short-term letting can be extremely divisive. However, this is not the case because it's a whole property that is going to be over to short-term letting, plus there's a good management and there's minimum sizes. So I'm really happy to support this, and it's a much better outcome than seeing the odd illegal short-term letting pop up in a strata building. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leeser. Councillors for or against? Councillor Fleeton? Nothing more to add. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for being here tonight. Alan, Brodie, Louise and Lee will understand if you don't stick around for the rest of the show, albeit very entertaining program. Item 12 is Community Development Alliance reports. 12.1 is the events plan for 2024-2025. Would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? I'll move the officer's recommendation. Who would like to second it? Thank you, Councillor Gobbett. So I'm very pleased to see the draft version of the events plan attached to this report. It represents a very thorough and not only evolution of our events and attractions in the city of Perth, but also continued growth and continued acknowledgement of the events that our team have been helping us put on are resonating with the community, not only our ratepayers within the City of Perth, but also many visitors and guests from outside. We pride ourselves on being the event capital of the city. I'm very pleased to see how our events plan continues to develop. Many of the events are our own, some we help facilitate, some we help support. It was exactly the stated ambition of our council when we got together and reimagined what was possible in this space. And the way we've bounced back post-COVID and endured COVID and been able to record numbers for our Christmas and holiday periods, record spends and visitation, and also record office occupancy is in part due to all of this great work. So I'm very pleased to see what we have come up with, and I commend it to my fellow elected members. It was seconded by Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Gobbett.
Reserve my right, thanks, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, Councillor Fleeton.
Just a quick question. The New Year's Eve celebration, can you just quickly clarify? There's a line in here saying subject to additional sponsorship. That's locked in regardless, but the budget will be worked out, or is the whole event on the hook?
So my understanding, if I recall correctly, is that we're talking about the component across in Northbridge. Is that correct? Let's go to the CEO. Where would you like to direct us?
Thank you. We're talking about the 12 o'clock, the midnight effort, and some of the additional components to next year's proposed program will require some sponsorship. So we have the allocated budget and we'll do as much as we can within that, but we also recognise certain additions to the events plan for 24, 25 will need to be supported, possibly by partners.
So just to follow up on that, if we don't get to if we get to a certain date and there's no sponsorship and we need more to put it on, we're still going to do midnight at EQ, aren't we? Great. And not at Northbridge.
Well, I think that was the question that came up during our engagement session. So if we needed to, we could forego the Northbridge light show and redirect the funds to EQ.
Great.
So, thank you, Councillor Fleeton. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against item 12.1, our events plan for 24-25? Councillor Gobbett?
No, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that has been carried unanimously. Thanks, everybody. We move to 12.2. This is the review of Policy 2.11, Heritage Rate Concession and Heritage Adaptive Reuse Grant Scheme. Been a couple of impartiality interests declared. Who'd like to move the officer's recommendation here?
With a slight adjustment, if I can.
Yes, you'd like to do that now?
Yes, if I can. So I'll move what's in the agenda just with a slight change where 1, heritage rate concession as at 30 June 2025.
So you're adding a year.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Okay. Seconder? Yes, Councillor Coe. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just start with 2 because it's more of the meaty one, then I'll come back to 1. So this has been around for a while. I appreciate we haven't had any applications yet. However, these projects do take time. I'm hoping the changes in the criteria which the staff have worked up, which are excellent, are making it more appealable, and we can push this out to our property council members and the like to get some interest. The reason why I've changed 1, I think a concession is much easier for existing ratepayers to manage this than having the prospect of losing 195 odd properties and then having to apply again through a form and a new process. I think that's just cumbersome for us. It's not worth the transaction costs. Some of these ratepayers are paying for upkeep of heritage properties such as Lawson along King Street, and we've got a lot of people in West Perth as well who utilise this concession. I don't think it's fair to chop this and then ask them to apply for a grant and then having a situation where some of them might miss out. I don't think it's worth the hassle. These people would appreciate the concession to use towards the upkeep of their heritage property. So I'm hoping 1 more year we can keep this going.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. The seconder was Councillor Coe. Councillor Coe.
Would this incur any additional costs? That's just my question.
CEO, any additional costs incurred by this? I should also say that if this, with the amendment, were to fail, we would be returning back to the officer's recommendation in case there was some lack of clarity as to what would happen. CEO.
So I could invite the General Manager Community Development to respond, or if needed, the CFO might have some additional comments.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, it relates to foregone rates revenue. So currently in the 23-24 year, the total value was $151,992.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Coe, did you want to speak to it as well, or were you just keen to ask that question? Okay, thank you. We were keen to hear the answers, so thank you. Appreciate you asking. Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just after some additional advice, perhaps from our CFO, are we able to get some more insight into how that is likely to be funded? Is there a reserve account or another way that we could draw down from another account?
CEO, through you to the CFO. Thank you. CFO.
Thank you. Through the chair. It's not actually a funding requirement as such, it's actually foregone revenue. So what it means is the rates revenue that we would have levied will be $150,000 less. But it's not like there's a hole that we need to draw money from somewhere else.
Sure, thanks. Appreciate that. Maybe if I rephrase the question, I understand that we won't be receiving the revenue, but it's revenue that we wouldn't have put towards other aspects of the budget.
Thank you. Through the chair, that is a entirely correct assumption, Councillor. It would mean if that money was to be applied to another project or service, that would have to be funded elsewhere.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Perhaps I might just procedurally foreshadow the officer's recommendation just for absolute clarity, but I don't wish to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Gobbett. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against?
Can I speak for the motion now?
Coe asked a question and didn't speak. Huh?
I asked a question, but I can speak for the motion now.
He can speak now. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Coe.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm looking at this and I think to myself, we're giving the owners of these heritage buildings a bit more time, and I really enjoy these old buildings. It gives the city plenty of character. So I think we should continue supporting and give them a little bit more time to get their affairs and all this. So I'm happy to support this until next year and see if anything else comes up by that time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Fleeton.
Thanks. So the answer from the CFO talks about the foregone revenue and no need to actually set up a fund or any type of process, which makes it far more efficient for us to manage this situation. The process is in play now. There's no need to change this. Any type of benefit you get by telling 195 odd people that they're not going to get that concession anymore, but still have the same rising cost to pay for this heritage upkeep. And then here, by the way, can you fill out this form and you might be able to get a grant that we set up elsewhere. I don't think it's worth, and it's not going to secure a good outcome for us. So commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Let's put this one to the vote then. All those in favour? And that is the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Fleeton, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor and Councillor Coe, and those against, Councillor Doshi, Councillor Gonsalves and Councillor Leeser, and that's been passed 5-3. 5-3. Thank you. Item number 13 is Infrastructure and Operations Alliance reports. We don't have any tonight, but we do have items under 14, Commercial Services Alliance reports. Item 14.1 is parking fee increase. I will move the officer's recommendation and am looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. I'd now like to move an amendment motion to the officer's recommendation. It reads as per the original officer's recommendation, but then adds under point 2, agreed to continue to provide free night parking subject to comprehensive review in April 2025, i.e. in 12 months' time, in respect of the following, and then it returns to what was previously there. B, in attachment A, the item headed 4, City of Perth nighttime rate. Noting, am I saying that bit? As shown on the screen, right, gotcha, yep. As shown on the screen, there's some postscript there, but that was also part of the original, wasn't it? Yep. So point 2 that I've added on the screen in green is the amendment. A seconder for the amendment, please. Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. So I will introduce some points here. Like everybody in our community, we as a business are wrestling with the increased cost of doing business. And many of the fees and charges, in fact, just about all of the fees and charges associated with doing business, not just from the City of Perth, but throughout the City of Perth and our community, have gone up during this period post-COVID and over the last couple of years, in particular while these interest rates have risen. And the cost of us providing the very high level of services that we do, all of the great events, the cleanliness that we provide, the safety, the amenity, our excellent administration, everything that we do. The cost of providing that obviously is on the increase. And I'm mindful, like everybody else in this chamber, that it is always a balancing act for our team, led by the CFO, who tries to keep our revenue streams coming in when our revenue is not coming in, or if more is required, it's otherwise rates that are going to be needed. And therefore, I understand and accept the need for the small increases in boom-gated car park, the proposed fees, the non-boom gated car park, and the on-street proposed fees. However, as part of the council team, that when we first came together, and COVID had begun to take a hold, we were motivated to, in the words of the member for Perth, pull every lever that we could to activate our city and provide some opportunity for our ratepayers and businesses who were struggling at the time to be able to benefit as many people coming in as possible. It's clear that it's worked. And I know from the anecdotal evidence, from the number of people that come up to me and say things to the effect of, the free parking after 6 p.m. is such a winner, thank you for the free parking, City of Perth, and so on and so forth. It has really resonated with our community. I point out too that often people in our community talk about our direct competitors being the shopping centres. And of course, everybody knows that the shopping centres offer free parking most of the time, and certainly after 6 p.m. It's been a huge point of marketing for us to be able to advocate for the free parking after 6 p.m. And our positioning statement and marketing statements on social media and in other places, every City of Perth Bay, free after 6 p.m, has sent a very clear message to our community and to the broader metropolitan area that the City of Perth is open for business. We are here for our retailers and business owners and operators, and I'm very pleased to say that they are thankful and appreciative of it. As a result, and I've alluded to some of the great numbers and some of the significant impact that we've been able to preside over, particularly Christmas, New Year periods, the visitation, the spend numbers, our office occupancy. It's been a winner. And whilst this free parking after 6 p.m. cannot last forever, and it's one of the reasons why I have set down in my amendment a comprehensive review in April 2025, and I'm happy to say here and now, in all likelihood, it may be the end of the free parking after 6 p.m. when it is reviewed in 12 months. But we've come so far with it. We're a couple of days away from launching a new campaign to entice and attract people into the city. And the goodwill that we have earned from being able to offer every bay in the city free after 6 p.m. is one that I don't believe at this point we should give it away. Another year feels about right to really bed it in and really cement the resurgent position of our City of Perth. And for that reason, the amendment that I have put forward urges our administration, and I will ask my fellow councillors for support to continue the free parking initiative after 6 p.m. for a further 12 months, because it is such a winner for the City of Perth and so appreciated by our visitors. Councillor Fleeton. Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question, if I might. Appreciate it's fairly on the spot. Are you able just to clarify, are you suggesting in the recommendation, the part 2, that the review happens over the course of the next year with the results presented in April?
That was my intention.
At which point a review happens, and then because it's my read of that, the free rate will continue on post-April?
No, so perhaps it's not been worded as ideally as possible, but in the way that this is coming to council now with recommendations, what I had in mind that a new recommendation would come to us in 12 months, and it would be up to the administration to suggest what they wanted to suggest at that point. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I appreciate you weren't here last week, but I did ask some questions around the nighttime spend, and it was given to us in the papers, which was really encouraging to see that between our baseline of pre-COVID and now, there's been a 29.7% increase of spend for nighttime spend, which doesn't sound a lot when you say percentages, but when you actually work out the figure, it's $26 billion. That's a lot of money. So, you know, it's a question of setting parking fees it's never easy. It's never going to be an easy decision, but you've got to weigh up all these different factors. And I think that nighttime spend is really important to have on the record. I would also like to say that the Easy Park app has resulted, it's been pretty good uptake. About 40% of people now are using it, which is great, and has resulted in a 15% decrease of fines. Now, that's also a very interesting point to make, although it's not kind of in this discussion, but it's very interesting around parking. So all in all, I think that you're pretty wise to bring this amendment, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to re-look at it next year, but I think that the extra income that the businesses and the economy is having at night is worth having another year of free parking.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Leeser. Was anyone wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry, I think we need to be clear for the admin here.
Yeah.
Could I seek your indulgence, just thinking through in my head that part 2?
Yeah, sure.
To include, subject to a comprehensive review presented to council in April.
So it probably needs that wording in there, doesn't it? Presented to council. So subject to comprehensive review presented to council in April of 2025. Would you be happy with that?
Yeah, I think it needs to be clear, so it's a different body of work.
Yeah. Seconder was Councillor Fleeton. Do you agree with those words to be added?
Yeah, that's fine, but does 2B in attachment A cancel, is that reflective in what we're moving as well?
Yeah, so I think my understanding is that just makes it clear that we are referring to the night parking rate as shown in attachment A. Okay. Councillor Gobbett, I don't want you to look confused. I want you to be happy. Thank you. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is an investment in the city. What funds are we foregoing to achieve this?
Thanks, Deputy Lord Mayor. Question from the Deputy Lord Mayor. CEO.
If I could invite the General Manager of Commercial Services to respond, possibly assisted by the CFO.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor. Okay, so we've got about 1 million visitations, we estimate, nighttime visitations. So if you apply that $5 fee, that's around about $5 million. Now, we know that it's unlikely that it is perfectly inelastic, and therefore, if we introduce some charge, there will be some impact probably to those $5 million visitations. So we're suggesting it will going to be relatively inelastic. So we've applied a 70% to that. So we estimate there's about a $3.5 million opportunity cost by introducing that $5 fee.
Happy with that, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Coe.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I've been mulling over this for a little bit. I'm a ratepayer, and I understand that our parking business is very important. It supplements the costs of our rates. Hearing some of the words from the other councillors, I've decided to change my mind and actually support this amendment. The reason why is because as drivers, we are probably one of the most highly taxed. We pay a fuel excise, we pay registration. In WA, we don't actually have tolls, but we do have quite a high parking levy. So anything we can give back, I think, is worthwhile. So in saying that, I will support this amendment and hopefully it gets through.
Thanks, Councillor Coe. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
Just quickly say a few words. So this increase in fees in the answer booklet, we've got to stump up 2.4 million in the Perth parking levy, 0.8, which covers the increase in the rate, and then 1.6 million. We've absorbed these increases over the last few years. I've struggled with the decision to increase the rate per hour and per day, but we're still cheaper than competition. We have to invest in this business to ensure longer term the pressure is put down on expenses to continue paying that subsidy to ratepayers, because we're going to need huge sums of money to meet the aspirations of this growing community. We're talking about some very big capital projects, so we need to make sure that this business is as strong as possible. All the points have been made around the nighttime parking. I don't want to see that go, but just to the General Manager's point, if they're assessing a potential 30% fall off in people coming into the city if there was a $5 charge, that also means they're expecting 30% less people coming into the city. Could you imagine what our ratepayers would do if we said we've heard that and we're fine with that? We cannot be fine with that. So this needs to go through.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. So it's mine to close then, and I think some.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly, yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
I just wanted to ask financially, if we do support an extension to the night rate, does it become harder to sustain that for the future in terms of having a flat rate fee? Are we, in effect, extending a free rate for 1 year to only see a much harsher and heavier imposition on users of our car parks?
So are you asking, I'm not quite certain what the question is, but it's not for me to answer anyway. So who's going to answer it? Because we'll see if they're certain of what the question is.
Well, I think, so the question is actually suggesting by deflating the increase, by keeping it at nothing, then is there going to be a bigger bounce? We have this issue every year when we talk about rates, and in trying to keep them down, the consequences of what happens when you have to switch on. If I could maybe ask the General Manager, but I really think the CFO might also have a view. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll do my best, assuming that I've properly understood the question. Look, I think the issue, any time one of these decisions needs to be made about suppressing what was potential modelled future growth, each time one of those decisions is made, as I've said to councillors before, it's not a 1 year decision, it's a compound decision, and it will get substantially worse. So if you take that to its logical extension, the way to rectify and return that to the projection would be, as Councillor Gonsalves has said, to have a bigger catch up in a subsequent year.
Okay, thank you. So, nothing further from anyone? So I'll close. Councillors, before us right now in this vote is the opportunity, if the motion is passed with the amendment, for us to be able to leave this chamber tonight and continue to say to everybody who enjoys the City of Perth, you can come into the city and park in any City of Perth car parking bay, on the street, at grade with a boom gate, or high rise free after 6 p.m. The goodwill that has earned this City of Perth Council and our City of Perth is absolutely enormous, possibly unquantifiable. But trust me, because I typically am the lightning rod for feedback from our community, it is appreciated, it is noticed, it is valued, and we are thanked for it. And my view is that at this point, after the huge resurgence our City of Perth has enjoyed over the last 12 months in particular, now, not just yet, now is not the time to give that away. So I'm going to call for a vote then. All those in favour of the motion with the amendment? And that is Councillor Doshi, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Fleeton, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor, Councillor Leeser and Councillor Coe. And those against, Councillor Gonsalves. That is passed 7-1. Okay, so I now need to move the officer recommendation as amended. Just vote on that, you're right. So we've moved it and seconded it. So it's the same vote. All those in favour? And that is again Councillor Doshi, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Fleeton, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor, Councillor Leeser and Councillor Coe. And those against, Councillor Gonsalves, and that has been passed 7-1. Thanks, councillors. We move on then to item 15. This is Corporate Services Alliance reports. 15.1 is the monthly financial statements for January 2024. This is on block. Thank you. 15.2, Schedule of Accounts paid January 2024 is also on block. 16, Chief Executive Officer Alliance report. 16.1 is the proposed council policy new and innovative events/activations. Would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Gobbett, and seconder Councillor Leeser. Councillor Gobbett.
Don't wish to speak. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Leeser.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just to say, it's good to see innovative policies like this come before us. It's a lot. It's more fun reading them than all the other stuff. But no, I think it's a good idea. It doesn't, compel any of the staff to do anything, but of course, it gives the option. So I think it's a great policy to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leeser. Yes, Councillor Fleeton.
Just a question, please. Today we received a CIBN which was supporting this new process, and it outlined what the process would be. I'm not too sure if councillors have had a chance to look at it, but the way I read it, and the question has a preamble for context, council gets to see the idea at the approval stage. That's the first time that we get to see it. I thought the whole point of this process was we were able to get eyes on, not to approve or not to do anything other than give some feedback from our point of view. So I wonder why it's been put right at the back and why there's no role for us to see some of these to give an indication on whether we would fund them or not, then get the applicant the whole way through to us and then go, oh, no, that's not really what this whole thing was about.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. CEO, some feedback, please.
Yes, could I please invite the Executive Director, Strategy and Governance, to respond to that, please?
Thank you very much. And through the Lord Mayor, there is provision within the policy to check in with councillors from time to time, whether through an EAMS or CIBN. So the idea is that when a report is provided to council, there should be no surprises. You should have visibility that this is coming. We've already checked in with you. You've had the opportunity to see what's in the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. As a follow-up, the verbal answer is comforting, but what you sent to councillors this afternoon is not. So there's a disparity here. So I'm happy to defer it if you need time to clear it
or
up.
is it possible that there was a lack of clarity in that, and we can be comforted?
There is discussion around inclusion of EMES, but if you feel that it's necessary, we're happy to better describe that in the supporting documentation.
Well, from a governance perspective, I think it would be, because I would like us to have a role more towards the front end of the process. So say if Councillor Coe met with someone in the community and put forward an idea for an event.
As he does regularly.
Good. And this is exactly the new pathway that I've been pushing for a long time. It would be silly to then suggest that the next time that Councillor Coe checks in is right at the end of the process, where you're asked for a final yay or nay, just to see how it's going. I'm not saying that any of us have an executive role here. It's more to see, is this meeting the need of why this has been put together?
Yeah, I've probably got a follow-up question myself. So my understanding, as well enunciated by Councillor Fleeton, was that this is something we're all involved in from time to time. We get people bring ideas to us, or they might say, hey, what about this? And so we're keen to get them to the administration to see if they can be furthered and brought to life. So are we confident that what we've got in front of us is going to enable that? Do we see any issues in are we sort of being counterproductive with what we've got before us? Or should we take comfort from the verbal explanation and be satisfied that, no, this is going to enable us to achieve what we'd hope to achieve with this?
If I could hand that to the Executive Director. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Through the Lord Mayor, the policy has actually been written in such a way that it gives us the most flexible, broadest, open policy settings to achieve the outcome. So the policy itself will not constrain the outcome. If the process map is confusing, I'm happy to take that offline and update it. It was really designed as a simple flow chart to try and demonstrate how an idea would make its way to the approval stage. There wasn't that check-in box there where we would present the prospects pipeline to elected members, and I can certainly update that. But certainly the policy settings within the policy enable those check-ins with elected members.
Can I just offer a suggestion in the attachment? So attachment 2, I'm looking at it right now. The only role council has as it's written now is to approve it right at the end. If you could, step 2, where it's talking about the ideas generated, does it align with policy? Well, the next one should be, does it align with council's priorities? And if we could have a check-in point there at the start, that would, at least in your process, allow us to have input at that point and not be kept in the dark throughout the whole process.
So is that achievable now, or does that need to?
I think it's an administrative matter. I think the point that the Executive Director has made is that the policy provides the ability to do what we're looking to do. It is innovative. It is unfamiliar territory. The flowchart was to assist in understanding how we move it through. A suggestion to make it clearer about the touch points with council is not a problem, and we can do that offline.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Fleet, for putting that forward. So is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? And Councillor Gobbett.
Don't wish to close, thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So let's put this one to the vote then. All those in favour? And we are unanimous around the table. Thank you, team. So we're going to move now to item 16.2. This is not on block. This is 16.2, Cathedral Square placemaking proposal. So there is a confidential attachment here, is that correct? That's what it says. Confidential attachment. So a reminder that if any elected members wish to discuss anything contained in the attachment, we're going to need to go behind closed doors. Is that right? Yep. So we are going to have some discussion, I take it. Is that what I... Okay, so a mover, please, for that.
Can we do this at the end of the meeting? Just shut the meeting down and then reopen it and get on with it. I'll move a procedural motion that we push this to the end of the meeting.
Let's have a look here. Yeah, no, I know we can do it. It's just whether we want to do it. All right, let's do it that way then. Okay. Let's go then to 16.3, We'll return to 16.2, obviously, at the end. 16.3, City of Perth Parking Amendment, Local Law 2023, adoption of the undertakings from the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation, and that is en bloc. 17 is committee reports. 18 is motions of which notice has been given. And 19 is matters for which the meeting may be closed. So we are now moving behind closed doors.
That's on block.
Sorry, 19. So 19, hang on, let me get this right. 19 is en bloc. Where's that marked? 19.1. Right, gotcha, yep. 19.1, CEO Key Performance Indicators Update, Q2 2023-2024, 1 October 23 to 31 December 2023. My apologies, it was over the page. That is indeed en bloc. Item 20 now is urgent business, and there's been one item of urgent business raised by the CEO in accordance with clause 4.112 of the City of Perth Standing Orders Local Law as follows. City of Perth Draft Business Plan, East Perth Primary School. So that is it, 20.1, correct? Yep, 20.1, City of Perth Draft Business Plan, East Perth Primary School. I will move the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. Okay.
Hey, Lord Mayor, hey. Can I ask a question?
Yes,
No? Is that all right?
you can do that because what I'm about to say will probably take a little while, so go for it.
Or do you want to speak first?
No.
Actually, you speak first. You speak first.
Thanks, Councillor Coe. Yeah, mover was me, seconder is Councillor Fleeton. So I will now speak to it. So the state government has requested, as many of us know, the city transfer 1.6 hectares of land, which, it's got to be said, is a scarce resource within the City of Perth, free of cost to the state for the development of a public primary school. I'm on the record as saying we welcome a primary school in the East Perth or inner city area, and have indeed indicated that if the deal was right, we are keen to be delivery partners in that objective. But I note, as does everyone else in our community, state government is responsible for providing public primary schools. Local governments have never been obligated to cede land for schools infrastructure at zero cost to the state. So you might ask the question, why are we being asked to do that now? This land was purchased by the city from private landowners in the 1960s and is held in freehold ownership by the city. Now, again, this is very important. The City of Perth, the ratepayers of the City of Perth, purchased this land. It wasn't given to us. We didn't discover it. We bought it. The state's offer relies on their perceived uplift in value of the city's remaining land holding via the repeal of the Chevron Hilton Hotel Management Act 1960. And the city doesn't agree with the state's assessment. That's a point that we have made. But this is important. The state is effectively trying to leverage value off the city's own land and using a 64-year-old statute that has lost its utility. It's already pointed out. We don't need it anymore. They're happy to repeal it, to drive a commercial arrangement and pressure the city to transfer its land free of cost to the state. This proposed land transaction, the City of Perth giving land to the state government for $0 and for no other consideration, noting that we have also in our negotiations asked for consideration of a land swap. It does lots of things. One of them is reducing the city's capacity to provide parking services. That's 513 bays for workers and visitors to the city. It also affects our future development potential of the majority of the site removed. It also calls into question what would happen with parcel A of the land, directly adjacent to a primary school. The suggestion from the state government has been multiple times, you can build whatever you like there. Well, I'm considering an issue in another part of the city at the moment where ratepayers are angry that a tower is proposed directly across the road from a primary school. It's one thing to say it now. Wait till the primary school is built and we bring a proposal forward that contemplates a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 level tower directly across the road from a primary school. The state's offer represents a financial cost of $29.9 million to the city over a 30-year analysis period. And as a comparison, the highest and best use of the site would see the potential financial cost of the state's proposal equate to $110 million over a 30-year analysis period. And I also feel compelled to point out the primary school proposal on this site would constrain the city's ability to reach its 2036 population target of 55,000 residents. One of the things the Minister of Education keeps saying is, this will help you build your inner city residential population because there'll be a school there. But he fails to take into consideration that these are two prime lots where a significant amount of that density, which would increase our population, would come from. The site's been earmarked as a mixed-use residential commercial precinct. There's some other points that are worth mentioning. The state government has proposed $63 million in benefit and $14 million in social impact. The $63 million comprises 20, so these are some of the numbers that we have been told represents why this is such a good deal for the City of Perth. The $63 million comprises $27 million uplift in the value on the city's remaining land, using the city's own land to leverage a questionable benefit. So we're told that because a primary school is there, all of the land automatically goes up. $27 million worth. We're also told $12.8 million is the supposed uplift in rates revenue because of the presence of the school, notwithstanding the fact that the two lots where we would have put a significant amount of the increased density to attract those rates has been wiped out because a primary school now exists there. $6.4 million of that benefit from not owning the car park. So the state government have told us you're going to receive a benefit because at the moment you're losing money. You're losing money on those car parks, they tell us. But guess what? We're not. We're not losing money on those car parks. The state government tell us we're losing $6.4 million. In fact, we estimate a net cash flow positive of $1.5 million this year. Making numbers up. Making them up. And $16.4 million increase in rates from the remaining land when developed from 2028. Well, that I guess remains to be seen. But that was, councillors, that was only the economic benefit, 63 million, that the state government tell us we can enjoy. They also added to the picture $14 million of social impact. Now you're going to enjoy this because this is actually quite entertaining. Now I've heard others describe these numbers being trotted out by the state government as voodoo economics. Not a bad phrase. Might be appropriate. Not for me to decide, Councillor Fleeton, but not a bad phrase. Amongst that, $14 million in social impact we're told we can enjoy. An amount of $8 million for activity transport via increased productivity. So we're told by the state government in a report that was done, because more people will be walking to school with their parents, there'll be increased productivity. And they put a value on it. $8 million worth of increased productivity via active transport. They also tell us there'll be active transport health benefits. What other health benefits, you wonder, of people walking to school? $1.5 million worth. How do you achieve that figure? Not quite sure, Your Worship, but it's $1.5 million we've written down alongside it. Oh, thank you very much. This one's good. The urban cooling benefits, $453,000. The congestion cost savings, $372,000. The vehicle operating cost savings, also under active transport, $223,000. And will save in other areas, or rather economic benefit, rather social impact benefit, things like $25,000 in benefits from air pollution, or rather less air pollution. There's even a figure of $8,000, again under active transport, for noise benefit. I'm not sure if that's positive or negative, but $8,000 is the benefit that the city will get from this extraordinary deal. Now, I highlight these points because we're nice people here at the City of Perth, but we're not mugs. We're not mugs. And consistently during our time, we have fought to represent the best interests of the ratepayers of the City of Perth. This is land that we bought. We own this land. To use the Chevron Hilton Act, which has effectively been useless for around about 60 years, as a bargaining chip with us, is not the way the state government should be doing business. And I've been very, very clear on this. We welcome, in fact, we want to be part of the delivery of a primary school in the inner city and indeed, or in East Perth. We have consistently asked for the site analysis information. How did you decide that this is the best site? State government have not been forthcoming with that. We assume it exists, but we are unable to see it. We have asked repeatedly, what is the plan B? We've not been given that information. In fact, I've heard the minister say, well, there is no plan B. That's where we want to go. We want to go on that site. And that's fine. It's not a bad site, but we own it. And here's the point. Consistently from the day this was announced, we've said if the deal stacks up, we'll be a part of it. But we have not been made a fair offer by the state government. You heard me say it doesn't happen anywhere else. And so why does it suddenly happen here in the City of Perth? So again, I ask state government. In fact, I probably ask directly to the Premier, because it is clear to me that in my dealings with the Education Minister specifically, we have not been able to reach any consensus or any fairness for the ratepayers of the City of Perth. So I say directly to the Premier, Premier, I appeal to your sense of fairness, your sense of good leadership, and your sense of doing what is right for the ratepayers of the City of Perth. Just make us a fair offer, whether it's a cash offer or a land swap offer, and we can all get on with delivering a primary school for East Perth. Councillor Fleet.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Very quickly, excellent contribution. Every local government across Perth is going to be grappling with this issue. Western Australia right now has incredible population growth, and the need for schools is not limited to East Perth. So the way that the state conducts itself here in transacting land or buying land needs to be fair and equitable for ratepayers. My concern here is the railroad approach that they've taken, and not once have I heard a summary of any negotiation where they've put a single dollar on the table. If that changes, I'm very open to seeing it on this site. I understand how important it is for the inner city education network for this asset to be built as soon as possible. I'm not voting for this out of spite. I'm voting for this motion because to do the opposite would be a terrible decision for ratepayers. You look towards the west of the city, West Perth is a growing area, Crawley and Nedlands are a growing area. How the state is going to be able to traverse that part of the world and think that it can pick up land for free to build other assets is crazy. The state has a lot of money at its disposal, and if they're not willing to put money into buying land for something as basic to a state government as a primary school, how out of touch are they in how they're signalling to the rest of the metro area? So they can come to the party very quickly here, and they should, and we would say yes instantly if there was a fair offer put on the table. What they're suggesting is not fair at all.
Thanks, Councillor Fleeton. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Deputy Lord Mayor.
I have a question, Lord Mayor. I remember initially that you were very excited about this primary school. Has there ever been an offer of monies made to the City of Perth at all?
Okay, well, I could answer that, but I'm happy to allow the CEO to answer that, or wherever she wants.
No.
Councillor Coe, question or for or against?
Question.
Question, yes, please, Councillor Coe.
A couple, actually. But those numbers, did they use Ansel and Allen?
Sorry, just
The state government's numbers that they're giving us on the savings on transport and all that. Who did they use?
who did they use?
Yeah.
They used an independent consultant. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to disclose who that independent
sure.
consultant is, although we do have a copy of the report. But it was an independent consultant. But can I answer this question? I'm going to answer it anyway. You're right to highlight the numbers because one of the numbers they gave us was we're the ones that give the answer to that, and they got that wrong. So how do we know that everything else in here is right?
Just another question. I've gone back to a couple of emails. In February, received a response from the minister. We actually sought legal advice asking about the Chevron Hilton Act. As our interpretation of it is that we can develop on top of that land as long as we preserve the parking. But then the minister responded saying, no, you can't do that. So is that the case?
CEO.
Thank you. I think the state government have some advice and also the city has advice. So we have different legal advice.
Councillor Doshi.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just ask, has value in any context ever been discussed in any capacity by the state regarding this project?
CEO. When you say value...
So any monetary value, any conversations about any...
an offer of
Yes.
any... No, so I think... CEO, the answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no. I'll just let Councillor Doshi just checking something. Might have a follow-up. Anything else, Councillor Doshi? No? Okay. So anyone else? A question or for or against? Councillor Carr?
So I'd like to speak for this motion. Just trying to swallow some of the numbers here. It's been quite a surprise. I don't know how to interpret this. I don't have the same vigor or energy as you do. But looking at some of these numbers, I think to myself, these are big numbers. We have a budget of just under 300 million. The state government had a surplus of 3.7 billion. So 300 million compared to 3.7 billion surplus. In saying that, I don't think anyone in this room disagrees with having a school, a primary school in the city of Perth. The problem is we can't have a primary school at any cost. The other thing is the irony of this whole Chevron Hilton Act. We got into this because of a school, and now this has come back to council because of a school as well. So it's interesting. I giggle inside a little bit when I read this.
Thanks, Councillor Coe. Are there any further questions, or was there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Gonsalves.
Happy to speak against. It needs to be said that this urgent item was provided to Council at 5:02 p.m, literally less than 24 hours before our meeting today. I'm certainly not going to vote for any motion that is presented without the time for due deliberation and discussion. On that, it's quite extraordinary situation that this item has not had the opportunity to go through our agenda briefing session without the opportunity for the community to look at it, to provide feedback, to provide delegations, or even to provide submissions. And yet we are being asked for an urgent decision when things are less clear than ever. As stated clearly in point 12, if Council does not support this recommendation, then the draft business plan will need further development. Point 12 continues to say that further details, that the normal process would be that the business plan would be advertised publicly, allowing for these community submissions before any final consideration or decision. And this is all expected under the Local Government Act of 1995. Sidestepping what should be an accountable, transparent and open process is not something that I'm keen to be part of. Simply, the support for a primary school in East Perth is as close to universal as you can get. People expect that the city should be a partner that steps up to deliver projects between state and federal governments for the interests of all. The one bane of Australian politics has always been the blame game between different levels of government. We've heard some strong language, but what we haven't seen is a hand to negotiate, to work in partnership and to deliver for our community. With this recommendation, I don't see the kind of progress that has previously been promised to us as elected members, or indeed any concrete pathways past the obstacles and hurdles that we now find ourselves diving headfirst into. We've been presented with what is a draft business plan of our own making at the 11th hour, with what is freely admitted to be a hypothetical scenario with no heads of agreement or memorandum of understanding, let alone any attached correspondence or paperwork. It has already been said that this school is set to be Australia's most advanced, most expensive and most well-equipped primary school in the nation. The Education Minister detailed that this will be the single biggest primary school investment in WA's history, set to be more than $100 million, along with all the economic benefits that could easily outshadow the claims being made. For us as a city to decline or frustrate the attempts to deliver social infrastructure to our community will go down like a lead balloon. The East Perth community wants to see this kind of social investment into an area that revitalises our core, that brings a living heart, that powers the kind of education precincts that we can create along the lines of what we see in Subi East and even in ECU City Campus. The area proposed for the East Perth Primary School has been historically encumbered by legislation with its use for car parks, without any vision or pathway for this area to be developed. We now have real tangible catalysts for social investment, for redevelopment, and our city desperately needs pathways like this, where we can lead a strong negotiating position on behalf of our city by being on the front foot. Our community is desperate to see the kind of development we see in Subi East, also in the doorsteps of a school.
We're at the 5-minute mark, Councillor Gonsalves, so I'll ask you to wrap up.
And a direct contradiction to the claims in the business plan that this city would be constrained in its ability to develop the remaining plot of land. At the end of the day, our electors and our residents are left wondering, as it's been put to me, is this about a genuine partnership or is it only about politics?
Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against? Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to start by thanking the city staff for what has been an exceptional approach to the due diligence in this report, because it has indeed provided elected members with a strong position in responding to the state's offer. Just briefly, I think Standing Order 4.14b does appropriately give the CEO the authority to refer this to Council as an item of urgent business, because there would indeed be adverse legal or financial implications. So that I'm not concerned by. If the city were to offer up land free of charge, as is contemplated, we would be making a contribution to delivering a state service without being appropriately remunerated. And that's not a blame game, that's cost shifting. And we should absolutely be vigilant on that approach. Dangling this carrot by offering development potential that already exists is not fair compensation. The city, in negotiating on ratepayers' behalf to receive fair compensation, is an appropriate response to the state's offer and shows sound financial management on behalf of the council and the city by seeking to offset foregone revenue from rates and in land transactions, for example. In seeking guarantees to ensure the development potential of adjacent land in the future is unencumbered by documents of due regard, the state has not been forthcoming in providing that assurance. From my personal review of the Development WA Hillside Design Guidelines, the WAPC Operational Policy 2.4, and the city's planning strategy in tandem with the Chevron Hilton Act, I agree with the assessment that the development potential already exists and can be developed in the current day. The city's and the state's strategies both clearly identify this as a residential development area. It would therefore be an improper and disorderly approach to the future planning of our city if we were to ignore that. So on that basis, Lord Mayor, I'm quite happy to vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Gobbett. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against? So I might take...
Oh, sorry, I do have a question, if I can add a question to my statement.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if through the Lord Mayor rather.
One and the same.
Thanks. whether our recent Audit and Risk Committee has detailed any risks relating around the relationship with the state government and what that risk rating is.
CEO?
Sorry, in relation to our strategic risks?
Yeah, I believe the Audit and Risk Committee has highlighted the failure to build and maintain a beneficial relationship with the WA state government. I'm wondering what that risk rating is.
If I could take that on notice, Councillor. Thank you.
So I don't think there's anything further from any councillors, is there? And if not, I might close the debate. I think there's been some very well-made points by our councillors. And I might just go for a very simplified closing. As we said at the outset, the City of Perth wants to be delivery partners in a primary school for the inner city and potentially specifically for East Perth. And we have always said we welcome it and would encourage it, but the deal needs to stack up for the City of Perth. At the moment, the deal being offered to us by the state government is $0 cash in compensation and no consideration of a land swap. So I might end as I begun, because I am of the view that the Premier of Western Australia is a decent fella. He knows what's fair and what's not. And I cannot imagine, I think it's impossible that the Premier would look at this deal and think this is fair to the ratepayers of the City of Perth, to take land off them that they own and not compensate them at all. So, Premier, I do ask, noting that point 4 of the recommendation that we are about to vote on authorises the CEO to continue to engage with the state government to negotiate satisfactory terms for the major land transaction, with such terms to ensure that Objective 3 of the guiding principles set out on pages 12 and 13 of the business plan are met. Premier, come back to us with a good offer. We can get on with it and get this primary school in East Perth built, which we all acknowledge we want and indeed will be very useful for our respective objectives. So we'll put this to the vote then. All those in favour? Councillor Doshi, the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Fleeton, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor, Councillor Leeser and Councillor Coe. And those against? Councillor Gonsalves. So that has been passed 7-1. So with that, we are now going to close the meeting. So we can, we're going back to item number, which item was it? 16.2. So 16.2, it has a confidential attachment, so a reminder that if any elected members wish to discuss anything contained in the attachment, we'll need to go to vote. We will need to vote to go behind closed doors.
So I'll move the officer's recommendation and to go behind closed doors so David can ask questions.
Thank you. And
I'll just highlight that I have nothing confidential to add to that, to bring up. I do want to make a statement, but there's nothing confidential.
Does it reference any of the documents?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. I'll move it.
But it doesn't. Okay, so you're not talking about anything in the confidential attachment, Councillor? Okay. You can't sort of slip out because you got me? Yeah. You don't want to take, should we not err on the side of caution? Yeah, no, the point is, if we're going to talk to it and it needs to go behind closed doors, if it gets spoken to, we don't know where the conversation can go. So I don't feel comfortable leaving the meeting open. So to that end, I think it is important that we go behind closed doors. Mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Fleeton. Seconder, all those in favour? Seconder was Councillor Gobbett. Yeah. So that's carried 6-2. So we'll go behind closed doors. Thank you. Yeah, the live stream will be paused. Well, that's a higher level of respect. Thank you, Councillor Gonzalez, also for that high level of respect, and everyone else who's joined in. Thank you.
Could you all please rise for the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis. Thank you all very much.